I'm calling you. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello?
Last time you were
Hello?
on this broadcast, you know, it's a very long time ago.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you said some things last time you were on this broadcast that became permanently memeified. Slasher.
Is that true? You sure?
I think so.
I can't remember.
Oh, you can't remember what it was?
Can't quite remember at all what we're talking about. Nope.
You can't. You can't.
No recollection.
Okay, I won't bring that up then. If you can't recall what happened last time you were on this broadcast, it's all good. Okay.
We're coming up on 3 years, you know.
Chat, stop spamming stuff.
Coming up on 3 years, Hassan.
Chat, stop spamming things that happened 3 years ago that didn't actually happen. Okay.
3-year anniversary this June.
Oh
and
my
something
God.
that I don't have any recollection of. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, we just wiped that. We just wiped that from the memory bank. Okay.
Hassan, Toast is only losing $1 million a year.
Yeah, that sounds psychotic.
Ludwig and Charlie are only losing about $1.5 million to $2 million a year. Didn't you just get a fat contract? You can afford it.
Yeah,
from what I read on the internet, you're a journalist
now.
Now.
You're a journalist. You should know that those contracts aren't exactly flush. I didn't get a contract with YouTube. I got an exclusivity deal with Twitch. Okay.
I heard that Kick is offering hundreds of millions of dollars right now.
Yeah, as long as I fucking sell Gamba on the side, probably. So I think I'm good on that.
I think your chat would love to see Team Hasanabi.
Yeah. Yeah, the chat would, and then everyone would be killing me online. They'd
just
be like,
team up with XQC.
Yeah,
he's already backed out. He's already gotten cold feet. You and him, just like Charlie and Ludwig have teamed up. I think you and Felix together would be an incredible combo.
Yeah, I would love to have a stable partner in this. One that is reliable and consistent and certainly never backs out of deals. That seems great.
Felix sounds exactly like you're talking about. No.
Yeah. Okay, so talk to me. So League of Legends, it's owned by Riot, a massive company. Which is like partially owned by Tencent, right? Or entirely owned by Tencent?
100% owned by Tencent.
100% owned by Tencent.
All of your money is going to China. Your voice comms are being recorded.
Yeah, that's fine. I've played Valorant. They have kernel level access to my computer. It's all good. It's fine. I love China, so I don't have an issue with that. Rod, do you want to turn on your camera or no?
By the way, nope.
Nope, you do not want to turn your camera.
I haven't set it up. It's not even. I gotta go get it. No, it's
okay.
Fine.
Never mind.
Okay. No one wants to see me, Hassan. What are you talking about?
Well, people are confused as to who I'm talking to. We're talking to an OG, a legend in the field. Okay, so
yeah, not like you would come see me. This guy comes to New York. Okay, we'll go to Tarek's apartment in Brooklyn. Will not meet up with me for 5 minutes. I just want to say hello. I don't want to snipe you on your stream. Just wanted to say hi. Couldn't take 5 minutes. It's okay, Hassan. I understand.
Okay, first of all, Tarek is my blood relative. Okay, it's a little different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a little different, and also that we were streaming. So
I want 23andMe proof on that.
Wait, hold on. Let me. I'm pulling up a photo of you so that people know who I'm talking to. There you go. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. So, all right, let's get to it. So you got multiple different leagues, right? Yeah. And NA is one of them, right? And it's seen as like kind of the black sheep of all the other leagues.
League of Legends is not doing too good in North America right now. No. It is much more popular in China. It's much more popular in Korea. It's even much more popular in Europe. North America is probably the weakest region in terms of total player base. And also in results, we are bad. We are bad at video games. We do not win any championships. The North American League of Legends community has as good of a chance of winning Worlds as USA does in the World Cup, which means zero. We have a 0% chance of ever winning.
Yeah, it's because we're too busy getting laid, okay?
Is it? Have you seen the chat on Twitch? I don't know if anybody's getting laid.
Okay, well, I was just trying to look for a reason as to why that's the case. So, all right. So we're not getting pussy, and we're not winning Worlds. And Worlds is like the global championship, right? Just explain this because there's a lot of people in here that love labor action and are pro worker, but are completely oblivious to what League of Legends actually is. So you're not talking to like a regular Twitch audience, as you know. Very different.
No, it's a video game you should never play. You are correct. It is a MOBA. Do not play these games. Okay.
Yes,
what we do here in America is we shoot people. All right. That's what we do. That is our culture. We shoot people in the head. We play games where you shoot people in the head. And that is kind of how we have evolved as society. So no MOBA. Get in your shoot 'ems.
Yeah.
That's what we do here. We're actually really good at shooting people in the head. Like historically in esports, America has been always great at shooting other people. We're really not good in terms of strategy. Anything that involves like having to use your brain at a high level,
we're animals. We're animals and we have a lot of guns. Even though the only time what was it? It was Todic that won a gold for an American team for Counter-Strike, right? Gold medal.
Yeah.
Olympic athlete. Olympic esports athlete, and he was Turkish. So
Europeans are better at shooting people than we are in video games. I mean, in real life, I guess you would say 50-50, but in video games, Europeans are definitely better. But Americans can still hold up historically. We definitely have won some titles shooting people.
Okay,
in video
games. So anyway, we got there's the American League of Legends is the American League of Legends scene is like not great currently. So explain before you get into like the franchising stuff. I guess one question I have is I've heard a lot of stuff about like big esports organizations like pulling their spots off of the NA scene and how does that process work? Like big esports corporations like purchase slots in order to be able to compete. How does that work?
Well, one, nothing's going well right now. Generally the entire esports industry is not doing too well financially. It's not even doing great on Twitch. I mean, there's a larger issue that Twitch itself as a company and in terms of Twitch's total traffic is not doing well. And that's actually somewhat related to esports' poor shape now because Twitch as a company is not doing too well, but esports in general not doing too good. But several years ago, to get into the league in the first place, Riot, along with Activision Blizzard, had the genius idea to make franchise leagues. Because all we know here is North American sports, and every North American sport is a franchise league. Unlike in Europe, where you have real football with the Premier League, and everything is relegation. If you're really good, you stay in the Premier League. If you're really bad, you get downgraded into the secondary and third leagues. Here in America, we want permanent slots so that no matter how bad you are, even if you're the Pittsburgh Pirates, even if you're the Cincinnati Reds, even if you're my New York Knicks, you will never, ever be able to be kicked out of the traditional sports league. So, all the game developers figured, let's just copy this, what we do here. And they did that for League of Legends and Riot, and they did the same. Activision Blizzard did the same thing for Call of Duty and for Overwatch, and they forced.
I have a question for you before we move on.
Yeah, sure.
Is the structure different in Asia? Like, do they have farming programs and like lower leagues that people farm out of, or is it also franchised?
It used to be, and this is the first year Riot actually enforced that both Korea and China would be like America and that they have to have franchise leagues. But historically, they have always had a great tier 2 system, which went right into the tier 1 system. So Korea and China had the relegation system, but Riot forced this new franchise system for League of Legends into Korea and China. They actually learned a lot from all this, and Valorant does not technically have the exact same system that League of Legends does. They have what is considered a partnership system, where you do not have to pay for a slot, and that Riot can kick you out. In League of Legends and in Overwatch and Call of Duty, you had venture capitalists and you had traditional sports owners like the Kroenkes, who own the Rams, and I think they own Chelsea. You have the Wilpons, who have the New York Mets. You have the Kraft, who own the New England Patriots. They were all really good friends with Bobby Kotick, the piece of shit CEO of Activision Blizzard, and he was able to get them to buy into the Activision Blizzard leagues. The same thing kind of happened here with Riot, where like the Golden State Warriors own one of the slots for the LCS, for example. So in LCS, people had to pay $10 to $15 million to own the slots. And Activision Blizzard, they were able to scam owners to pay $25 to $30 million for each of those slots. So the owners do own the slots in this franchise league. In Valorant, for example, the difference is no one paid to get into the Valorant League.
That was an invite, right? That's like
Yes.
Invitations from Riot. That hands to like whichever teams are allowed. But then also there's a secondary league that, in order to get to, is Challenger, is it, or the championships, VCT? In order to get to it, there's like a second league, I guess, with like other
it's called Ascension.
Other organizations that didn't make it or didn't get an invite were able to compete their way up to the VCT, right?
Yeah, so like Charlie and Toast and Ludwig's teams, they're in the secondary league. You can, by winning the Ascension, get into the partnered league. So Riot actually did learn from their fuck ups from the franchise League of Legends stuff and did it totally differently for Valorant. The difference is that Riot can at any time kick you out of the partnered league if they do not feel like you are holding up the demands that you entered into when the partnered organizations first got onto the league. Like G2 was originally going to be a partnered team in the Valorant league
because they lost their slot, right? Like they were originally invited and they lost their slot due to Andrew Tate and the owner of G2 being a massive Andrew Tate dick rider. I don't know if you knew this or not, but he also used to always try to hang out with me every time he was in Los Angeles and like tried to sign me multiple times to G2.
Good thing you said no to Carlos.
That's fun. That's a little fun fact for you. Which I always thought was so strange that he made that jump from like being a fan of mine to being an Andrew Tate fan.
Well, now he's not paying child support and he's not seeing his kid also. So things are not going very well for Carlos at the moment. So you did a good thing.
Well, maybe I did a bad thing. Maybe if I hung out with him, he wouldn't have been a fucking Andrew Tate dick rider.
You could have saved him. You could have prevented this timeline. So anyway, yes. So Valorant is a little bit different. Riot did learn from their mess ups with the this whole League of Legends portion, and they did things differently with Valorant. However, League of Legends and then Activision Blizzard with Overwatch and Call of Duty are all franchise leagues. But as I was saying in chat, the difference is with traditional sports, these are video games that are IPs that are owned by mega corporations. In traditional sports, nobody owns basketball. No one owns football. The NFL and the NBA and the MLB are the owners all coming together for an association where they all work together and the commissioner is the representative of the owners. That dynamic does not exist here in esports. The developers, namely Riot, Activision Blizzard, even Valve, but Valve is actually much different. Valve is like, do whatever the fuck you want. We don't give a shit. Just don't fuck up where we have to come in and fix everything, you morons. But Valve actually has a very laissez-faire approach where they let the entire third-party ecosystem do things on their own. And things have actually gotten much better in Valve's approach than it has to Riot or Activision Blizzard. However, they still own the game.
Gaben is the GOAT. Gaben is the legend.
Gaben is the GOAT. But things are still, it's better in Valve's way, but they still own Counter-Strike. They still own Dota. These mega corporations, these game companies still own the IPs. So they make all of the money when it comes to revenue. Most of the money the game developers make is through in-game microtransactions. And, that has...
Yeah, gambling on CSGO crates, or in Valorant's case, me buying every skin imaginable, even though I'll never fucking rank above silver.
You've bought everything? Of course you have. How much
Yeah,
money have you given Riot to China?
Dude, first of all, the China angle is nullified in my case. Knowing that it's a Chinese company makes me only want to buy more skins, okay?
Okay, yes.
I am a big fan of Chinese prosperity and the real top Xi Jinping. If anything, it's really, this is really not like him, Mr. Xi, please put down your phone. This is not like you. You spread love, not hate. Don't allow these players in NA to be cast aside like this, is what I would say to Xi if he was watching.
Now I know where you get all your big donos from.
Yeah.
China has single-handedly made the Counter-Strike skin market explode like 300 to 400% in the last couple of years. So you're on the right path, and all those Oilers are now China Oilers. So you're doing a good job, Hassan. I'm proud of you.
Yeah. So anyway, whatever. It's a Chinese company, is irrelevant in this process. So Riot owns the IP, so they have full control over whatever the fuck happens. They can literally shut you out of the game if they technically wanted to, right? Like they could IP ban you if they wanted to.
Yeah, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, which is insane. Like you can't get banned from playing football. Like you can get banned from playing in the NFL, but you couldn't get banned from playing football. Like that's not a level of control that the NFL has over just the game. So,
and if you're Tom Brady, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah. Well, regardless, so they have a lot of control and they're exercising it in this situation. Let me I guess explain it one more time, and you can tell me if I'm wrong on this. So there's in NA they decide to do a before the franchising, they decided to do, or while the franchise spots were in existence, they also decided to create a farm league, right?
Yes.
They decided to make a feeder league or a farm league where you could get scouted from and you could get into the franchised league slots, right?
Yep.
And a lot of players, from what I understand, players in the players union and players inside of these, the professional players who are in these franchised teams, were coming from that league, from the feeder league. Right?
Yeah, a good amount. I mean, part of it is that North American amateur talent and the entirety of the North American scene is so poor that the franchise leagues usually opted to bring in imports from Europe or Korea or China instead of bringing up the academy players from these challenger teams that we're talking about. But though this is the fault of the organizations themselves, they could have brought up more talent from the amateur challenger scene into their franchise league, but they're always so enamored with bringing over a star talent, or I would say a wash talent from Korea, China, or Europe instead of bringing up North American players. But yes, that is generally what happens.
Okay. So what's the reason why they decided they decided to just completely nix the other not the non-franchise league in its entirety? What's the conflict here?
But the organizations, came to Riot. Much of this was the esports organizations themselves: 100 Thieves, TSM, Cloud9, etc. Because of the such poor financial state of the entire industry, where venture capitalists are leaving, sports owners are, selling their stakes in these teams. Sponsors are heavily leaving and they're not renewing their contracts because of, the dire state of the financial stability. That caused all the organizations to basically come together and ask that they no longer have to be forced to pay the secondary team. And alongside this, as I mentioned earlier, North American League of Legends in general is not really doing very well in terms of the total player base or the total viewership. So it was really the organizations pushing for this, but it was also Riot kind of somewhat agreeing, considering they do control everything, they did have to agree with the organizations that this is a waste of money from their standpoint. It is not worth supporting the tier 2 scene and the academy players.
Okay.
Look, on one hand, I understand. Yes, esports is kind of screwed at the moment, and things are not going well. However, I do not have sympathy for one, Riot, several billion-dollar corporation. They are, especially with Blizzard's downfall, they are pretty much the number one with Valve PC gaming company in the world, and they make a ton of money off of their games from League of Legends and from Valorant. I don't have a ton of sympathy in them not being able to support a couple $1 million here and there for these players who want to keep their jobs. And two, these organizations sold false goods to the venture capitalists, to the sports owners, that esports is going to be bigger than sports, and that the League of Legends World Championship is going to be bigger than the Super Bowl. That was always bullshit. That was never a real thing that was happening in our industry. But all of these big esports companies sold this false reality to the people that were giving money. They were able to get hundreds of $1 million from Twitch, hundreds of $1 million from YouTube. Now Twitch and YouTube don't even want to pay for the rights anymore because they understand that the value and the traffic is not there for what it was. So I don't have sympathy there for the organizations either. They made the bed that they are in to begin with. They're the ones that drove these valuations up to several hundred millions of dollars that were never realistic to begin with. So they should be forced to pay these players. Riot should take some of the billions of dollars that they're making and pay these players. These players should not be left out in the cold because of poor decisions from both the developer and from these organizations to not control their companies the right way, and for none of them to be profitable. It shouldn't take 100 thieves trying to sell hoodies to financially keep the entire scene stable. That is an absurd, ridiculous notion. So to swipe the rug out of these players who are just trying to make a living and to get by playing the game and promoting the game this entire time for this developer, for these organizations, yeah, I really am on the side of the players. The players have no leverage here. The organizations barely have any leverage because the publishers own everything. They own the IPs, they own the leagues. Blizzard and Riot could do what they want. So it's like not even 100 Thieves and Cloud9 and TSM and Phase Down or whatever. They can barely get money out of the esports ecosystem. The players are at the bottom of the totem pole here. So you have even the teams that can't do anything. Now they're working along with the developers to basically pressure the players and to make sure and to put their boot onto the players. And tier 2 players who grind this game for hours and hours a day just to get a chance to play in the Premier League should not have their opportunities taken away and the small amount of money that they're making to get by to try to make their dream a reality here. So the Players Association in League of Legends is one of the first times in any esport game that there's a real association fighting for the rights of the players. So I have no sympathy here for the organizations or for Riot in this scenario.
And it seems like they're trying to, it seems like they're trying to protect the NA scene, which could literally become a very marketable entity down the line if there was enough investment given to that rather than continuing with the old way of doing business. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but it's impossible for me, from where I'm standing. It seems ridiculous to say that a fucking nation with like 330 million people in it don't have any good fucking gamers. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's like funny to say, oh, near airport, NA is shitty, it's dog shit, whatever. But that just means that there isn't enough investment into it. That there isn't enough investment into funding, farming, scouting, and building up players inside of North America in the North American player base.
I mean, look, I've been in this industry, in this community for over 20 years. I have been all aboard the Americans are not as good because of our culture, because of our work ethic, because of the lack of total players here, because of high ping, bad servers, bad scrim time, not enough teams to scrim, not enough teams to schedule. There's a laundry list of reasons that American teams and players do not do very well, let alone in League of Legends, but in all international esports, whether it's Valorant or Counter-Strike or Street Fighter or anything, American players or teams just traditionally have not done as well. However, if we want Americans to eventually, and a North American team to eventually win the World Championship, how would totally carving out the tier 2 amateur scene help get to that situation? This is only going to make things worse. If you are rooting for North American players and North American organizations, gutting the tier 2 scene and not allowing these players to make a little bit of money while they try to get into the show to see what they can do, this is not going to help everything.
Yeah. So you're on the side of the player other than this one. People keep saying in the chat that like NA players, while not being very competitive in the global stage, are also getting paid more or something than other markets, and I don't know if there's any validity to that. I feel like that seems like weirdly.
The only in China, players are making more than America because China has like the best ever esports ecosystem. Each of the teams in China can draw 5 to 10,000 fans for each local match. Like each individual local match in China has a stadium of people coming out for all of their teams. In China, League of Legends is by far the most played in terms of the most amount of players. It's the most viewed. Whenever the World Championship each year has like, I think the Riot comes out with like 80 or 90 concurrent million concurrent viewers or watch the final, I would say 95% of that is China. The rest is North America, Europe, and Korea combined. So China has a gigantic, huge ecosystem for esports that is very financially viable. But number 2 is North America, because that's where all the money is. All the big sponsors are American. All the like big VCs and traditional sports owners are American. European owners don't have as much pull as like American sports teams and American like traditional American sports leagues. And Korea, for as great as they are like the best players historically for League of Legends. Their scene in terms of like the business side does not nearly have as much money for players. T1, which is like the biggest Korean team, is owned by Comcast. Like they got bought out by Comcast. And T1 is owned by T1 is basically an American team. So that's how they can afford Faker to pay him as the highest paid player, League of Legends player in the world. They're basically getting paid, by Americans over there. SKT1, which was the former Korean team, and how they got to T1 would have never been able to afford Faker if they were just still SKT1. They needed that American money. So yes, considering how poor performance the North American organizations have had in League of Legends, the players probably shouldn't be paid as much compared to the Korean or the European players, because they've had a much better time performing when it counts. But this is just the economic situation in America. There's just more money here. All the sponsors are here. All the VCs are here. All the money.
That's why I'm saying America. There's an opportunity for the NA scene to be significantly more competitive, because there's so much more money. Because the way I see it, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm very uninitiated on this stuff, but the championships, whether it be the VCT or LCS, like these are just the marketing arm of Riot. Like they see this as a way to market their product to a broader audience, right? So that they come in, they play, they gamble, they get invested, they put thousands of hours into this fucking game. Constantly wanting to kill themselves as they play the fucking game, and they buy all the skins, and they dump a shitload of money into these fucking skins, which are not actually giving them any sort of competitive advantage, even though you still keep buying them over and over again. Gamble is in gamble with your life. Sorry, chatters. I didn't mean like literally gamble like CSGO skins. I meant like CSGO crates. I meant, just lose yourself in the game. Okay, and it's very profitable. It's a very profitable venture, but it's for marketing, right?
Yes, historically, like all of the esports efforts for Riot and Activision Blizzard are done as a marketing arm. Like everything that is being done for the League of Legends historically in esports has been done for marketing because the game companies make all their money from the microtransactions, not from the sponsorships. However, in recent years, you've had Riot try to get LCS to be profitable. They have tried really, really hard to make the actual product itself be profitable and not tied to the transactions. And Activision Blizzard fucked all of this up by basically lying to everybody and telling everyone that Overwatch League was going to be this enormous, gigantic hit and that Call of Duty League was going to be bigger than the NBA or whatever. Activision Blizzard, out of all of the different companies, definitely sold the fakest bullshit to everybody to get everyone to run from everything. So Riot, considering Activision Blizzard went so far to fuck everything up, Riot's been pretty good comparatively. However, esports has still been basically a marketing arm for microtransactions. But they are trying to get LCS specifically to be profitable. And Activision Blizzard tried to get the Overwatch League and Call of Duty League itself to be profitable, but that has been a complete disaster, especially the Overwatch League, which has completely fallen on the wayside because Overwatch itself as a game has been completely mismanaged from top to bottom, and Overwatch 2 is a complete fuck up too. So the game itself is not, that's what caused that. Like that's actually the biggest issue in all this. League of Legends and the LCS is not doing well because League of Legends is having a tough time as a game here in North America. The same thing with Overwatch League. Like for all the problems the Overwatch League itself has had, Overwatch not doing too well has cascaded a lot of the issues that Overwatch League has. Call of Duty
League has
actually,
because it has capital. There's capital flight. Is that what you're saying? Because Overwatch League being an abject failure, it turned investors off from investing in dumping unlimited amounts of funds into esports. Is that what you're saying? So people are just like very scared.
Yes, I mean Overwatch League itself, because of Bobby Kotick was like best friends with Robert Kraft and Kroenke and Wilpon. That's why they invested in the first place, because they're his boys, they're his buddies. All right, they're all going to, they're all on Epstein's flight list, all of them together. So he was able to get them to all invest into the league to begin with because they're friends. And now that everything is going really poorly, and he had the sexual misconduct allegations against him.
I just got to say something, okay? Everyone is reeling from the loss of a friend. Okay, Jeffrey Epstein's untimely death, which was ruled as a suicide, was hard on a lot of CEOs of major corporations. Okay, I just want to point that out.
Moment of silence.
Yeah, it's just a lot of people are still reeling from that. They lost their best friend, Elon Musk included. Okay, let's continue.
Elon, huge fan of Overwatch, by the way.
Yeah. So okay. So now Riot is saying that they're delaying if the players do not cave, like the Players Association does not cave to Riot's lack of interest in dealing with them. Beyond the 2-week window, they are going to literally shelve the summer games. Is that what's going on? Because they said that they're prepared to cancel the entire LCS summer season. Carrying this forward, if the LCS summer season is canceled, this will also eliminate LCS teams qualifying for 2023 Worlds. I want to be clear, that is not an outcome we'd want, but unfortunately the reality of ensuring we run a fair and competitive global system.
Yes, that means no North American teams would be at Worlds. Also, the news about the scab players is true. In the last 2 days, the organizations and Riot have worked together to eliminate all of the previous rules of how teams can sign players. And they are allowing organizations to sign any player, no rules. You can sign anybody, and they will pay the players $2,000 per game.
More than what they were paying the pros, from what I understand. Is that true?
If you total it up per game, it probably is more money than some of the minimum salary contracts that some players are making. Yes.
Love to have a leftist audience that doesn't even give a shit about video games all that much to only immediately be like, "Oh, it's time for me to fucking scab." Like, it's let me scab. A lot of you are bitches, okay?
Actually, the community has responded pretty well, and most of the players who have been approached by the organizations, even though like $2,000 per game would be a lot of money, and they would get the opportunity to play on stage, which they would never have gotten before. From what I understand, and people that I've spoken to, players and coaches, etc., most have turned it down. Almost everybody has turned down the organization's request to play, even with the opportunity and the money in front of them. So the players actually have been pretty good, united with the professional players in not taking the scab money and not crossing the picket line. But yeah, really, from Riot's statement today, I gauge that there is very little chance that Riot is going to relent here. Because of everything that I've said before, the Players Association, it's not like the MLB or NBA Players Association, which is a really strong union. Okay. It's not like the union for cops or whatever across the country, but they have like a really good deal, and they're able to push back against the owners in baseball or basketball to get what they want. The players in League of Legends really do not have a ton of leverage, considering everything that I mentioned before. And it really does not sound like Riot wants to give in to any of the demands that the LCSPA wants here. So
you don't think they're gonna do that? You don't think they're gonna give in to any of the demands?
I mean,
they're gonna let LCS, like they're gonna let the NA scene die and not compete in Worlds. I mean, I guess like if they're not even getting to it anyway, and it's a blip on their radar, it's one thing. But how does this impact the North American consumer market? I guess like
Riot considering is hoping to turn the community on their side. Riot is really hoping with this statement to get the community to flip from being against Riot and on the side of the players to being more on their side and looking at the economic situation, and to try to force the players back into playing. That is my reading of what they're trying to do here. They're trying to manipulate the community. They're trying to manipulate the situation to bring more people that are going to align with them to get a soft pushback so this scenario doesn't happen, and that NA teams are still going to play at Worlds. I could see the second half of the season being canceled as much more likely than NA teams do not show up at Worlds, because Riot does need the NA teams at Worlds to get the maximum amount of viewership, to get the maximum amount of engagement, and to sell like the sponsors on everything, because Worlds is, a huge in-person endeavor that is costing Riot tens of millions of dollars of flying teams and coaches and players and talent all across the world and hosting venues and all that other stuff. Canceling the second half of the season is probably more doable and less of a financial loss from Riot. So I could see that scenario happening where the second half of the season is pushed back even further or canceled, but they are hoping to get as much of the public on their side so that the teams,
because they want the viewership. It seems like they want the NA viewership. They don't give a fuck about the NA players. And if the NA viewership is also not interested in the NA players, then they're fine. They got rid of a costly thorn on their side while simultaneously maintaining the audience that's going to allow them to keep selling sponsorships and make more money and ensure that this isn't a bigger financial hit. Rod, there's a Ellis CPA board members in the chat, and they're saying they want to join the call. Do you mind if I invite them?
Yeah, of course. Philip is the person in charge. He's done a great job.
Are you friends with him on Discord? If you can invite him into the call, if you are. The fucking Players Association person in the chat keeps adding Fossabot. Don't do that. That's not going to get you any. I don't know why you're tagging Fossabot there. That's not very helpful for you, but I see you in the chat. Rod, do you know him or no? I mean, are you friends with him on Discord?
Yes, but I don't. I'm getting his Discord now. I am friends with him, but I don't know. I'm getting the
his Discord. If you can bring him into the call, that could be helpful. So. Yeah, Riot is saying, first and foremost, we support players. We also support teams that we believe more than ever in the LCS. Yeah.
They're just hoping that the fans and that everyone in Twitch chat is fickle. All right, and that you guys out there will not give a shit who was playing on the stage. That you would rather root for 100 Thieves or Cloud9 or TSM and not care about who was actually playing. Riot is betting and hoping that is the case. Everyone out there that is listening, who is a League of Legends fan, or people out there and just League of Legends fans in general, have to hold firm and not watch, not tune in, not give Riot any engagement, not give Riot a reason to show the world that there is no reason to have the professional players on stage and that they could sign any replacements and have everything go fine.
Yeah, like what if they go to like the Chinese feeder leagues to just fucking stack their rosters full of players that are decent, the good? Is that a thing that these teams could do? The franchise teams could do right now, and like completely override the players association's demands?
I don't
Which,
think
by the way, we didn't even talk about that. What's up with what are their demands exactly?
The Players Association?
Yeah.
I'm getting him right now. I will let him explain for you.
Riot has successfully architected a tier 2 ecosystem in other major regions, Europe, China, and Korea, and we want to do the same for North America. It will take some shifts and trade-offs to get there, so to help North America see and through this transition, we've decided to give our NACL partner, Rally Cry, an additional $300,000 in order to jumpstart the 2023 NACL season this week. This funding is an addition to the revenue share to the NACL teams we announced last week. Transitioning from the ineffective academy system to the new NACL model will be helped with this funding. Wait. Flash just left the call. Oh, wait, hold on. Here it is. Hello.
Hello.
We're joined by Philip.
This is Philip.
Um,
he is the head of the LCSPA.
Nice to meet you, son.
What's going on? I'm looking at your asks of Riot. So what happened, Philip? Explain to me what's going on. Why are you upset?
Why are we upset?
With Riot?
Not just me. I'm here to, the mouthpiece for the players in this situation. And, really the instigating incident here, I've worked for the PA and represented players for over 2 years. Every bit of our relationship with Riot has always been predicated on mutual respect and participation in the process. And up until about a month ago, or a few weeks, time has turned into a blur recently. It's been a busy time, but until very recently, that's always been the case. Riot's always known that we communicate together about what's going on. We plan far in the future, and if we have things that red lines for each other about changes, we try and work them out, and we try and figure out solutions that everybody can be on board with. Similar to any group that's in kind of constant negotiations around how how a workplace or ecosystem can be. We're not unionized, but again, esports is a funny space. We're 3 parties, and really the developer owns everything, right? They own the football, so to say. And so we act as a lobbyist, same as anyone goes to Congress. I think my job is going to Riot. They're the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the president, and our job is to persuade them on how to run the IP that they own. And that's always been really successful until very recently, when between splits, the decision was made without consultation or discussion with the PA to remove the requirement for LCS teams to field, as you mentioned, AAA baseball equivalent rosters, what we call the NACL. Both sides knew that a decision like that overnight would cause the vast majority of organizations to pull out to reap some financial savings, and they did it in spite of our strong protests and, in our view, without proper prior consultation discussion about what would be necessary to make the ecosystem functional without a requirement like that in place. So that's what happened, and here we are.
Okay, so you want a Valorant style promotion and relegation between the LCS and NACL. You want Riot to commit to a revenue pool for player salaries of $300K per NACL team per year. You want to allow the LCS orgs to partner with affiliates or for cost sharing. You want Riot guarantees with LCS minimum contracts for the following year for the 5 players who win the LCS Summer Finals each year. And you want to institute a 3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their slots in the upcoming NACL season if a majority continue to compete together. So what did they say to that?
I first off appreciate you reading all that. I'd say first and foremost, our asks to Riot are to make a system that makes sense. That's sort of the first and foremost. These points are, they're asks, and they're also the start of a conversation about how do things we know would actually solve the problem. Uh, to what Riot has said to these, everyone can see Riot's public statement from tonight. What we care most about in that statement is that, and behind the scenes, we met with them before their public announcement tonight, and there was a commitment from them in the statement and behind the scenes to continued conversations and negotiations. We're going to be meeting with them tomorrow. I'm waiting on a time and checking my email to see when we're going to set up a time to talk. And I am going to say that my focus is making sure those negotiations are fruitful. Uh, we have long believed that it's about making sure the system makes sense. We've never claimed that the rule that required teams to field a third party or to field a AAA roster, the NACL, was a good rule, but it was the best solution to a bad system. Slashers talked a little bit about franchising and the issues that it creates in an ecosystem, and market inequalities. If you want to get all capitalist, it creates disincentives to be successful or competitively successful, and it disincentivizes developmental leagues unless you require the people who are staked in the game to participate. So that's what we're asking for. That's what especially bullets 1 and 2 are. It's saying, hey, we need to put a system in place that actually will encourage people to participate and ensure that North American talent pipeline doesn't dry up overnight. So that's the core of our asks.
Yeah. What do you? Why do you think they are behaving in this unresponsive way, and they're trying to implement the nuclear option of like even tanking the LCS in its entirety for this season?
That's a good question. We certainly don't agree with the manner in which they posted tonight. Our preference would have been to post about the positive things that we're both working towards, which is delaying the season to lower the temperature around the scab movement that was put into effect after we announced our walkout. Once we announced our walkout and teams started reaching out to scabs, we saw undue pressure and coercion from teams to try and make players disclose if they were walking out, to pressure them not to walk out. Some things that have been reported recently that we can't speak to details because of personal situations, but it has been a dangerous thing that Riot put in place. And we asked them to delay the season. We said lower the temperature so that we can meet and we can actually come to solutions, and we don't spend all of our time convincing Diamond 1 players not to take the stage in a sham fashion. So that was first and foremost. I think their statement today is overly aggressive and doesn't set the tone right for going into these negotiations. But at the end of the day, my job is to do the work and go and meet and get ourselves to a place where our players can feel comfortable about going forward and playing. We want to play, and we just got to see they're going to put us at the table, and they're going to actually listen to reason about what needs to happen for the scene to work, because the community is with us on this. They know that what's happening is not good for League of Legends globally or in North America.
Okay. All right. So how do we move forward here?
If you're in the public, I think your voices have been instrumental for us throughout this process. Solidarity has been huge. I mean, it's been incredibly humbling to see people who, I said Diamond 1, I wasn't joking. I've had a Diamond 1 player reach out to me saying I was offered a job to go play as a scab. And yeah, Rob brought up, you can make a lot of money to do that. And the fact that we're here, that they realized it was impossible to run a broadcast without player support, is huge. And part of that's the community. You taking and talking about this and talking about labor movements and the importance of worker solidarity is huge. We need more people to understand the importance of that. And yeah, there's a bullet at the end of this rainbow that says the league doesn't play if we don't come to an agreement in 2 weeks. And that's a serious thing to put at stake in a conversation. But it also speaks to the power of players and the power of employees writ large. If people stand up at the end of the day, like the means of labor are what create the product, and there's no esports without the players. And so I think that's what I see today, is that they realize that, and it might have taken them a few days to, but we just need the community to keep loud and keep on the Riot about coming to real solutions. That's what matters. Like, if we're going to get this season going and we're going to get to Worlds, it's going to be because we work together, not because we stood up on Twitter and on posts and yelled at each other from afar. We got to get in the room and work.
So,
given your understanding of the situation, what do you think the likelihood is that the season will be canceled?
Not going to comment on that at this time.
So, sorry, I'm getting some other questions on the side as well, but I guess like you already mentioned, it's the people watching have more power in this regard than in normal circumstances when there's like some kind of labor action. I mean, I guess like the alternative would be to try to fill the franchise slots with scab players, which has happened in the past, even in the NFL, where the player unions do have, I would say, a little bit more power than the LCSPA does over the NFL, where they like brought in scabs, and it's not like you guys have the capacity to go outside of the stadiums and like beat the shit out of the scabbing players. You know what I mean? Like which is what they did in the NFL at the time in Philadelphia, if I'm not mistaken. But no, literally, that is what happened back in the day, chat.
You.
It's part of labor history. But regardless, so I mean, I don't know where like other than players engaging in this walkout. I don't know what other actions there could be. What is the funding? I mean, I guess like part of it is there a strike fund or some kind of funding mechanism to help out players throughout this time that are a part of the Players Association? Is there a structure resembling like normal North American unions? Or have you guys ever thought about partnering with the UAW or a larger union in North America like the Teamsters, which I'm sure would be perfectly willing and able to help out in situations like that? Is there any opinions on that? Because look, I don't really understand the league space at all. I play Valorant and I play it very poorly. I'm just simply talking about this or thinking about this from the perspective of like labor action in general.
Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. A lot of my work in the last 2 weeks has been educating on the history of labor in America and how labor actions work. And I started off a call a day ago just explaining what a walkout versus strike versus lockout is. So I appreciate your voice in this and helping to, bring education on this stuff to folks and just the importance of it. In terms of what we can do next, like first and foremost, like we have to keep up public pressure. You can't let the story die, and it's part of our job and it's part of the community's job to continue to make make right understand that people want the LCS to happen and they want it to happen with the players that they know and love, and to come to the table and bargain in good faith. That's the first and foremost thing. We don't need a strike fund right now. Our players are still working. The walkout never actually started because Riot delayed the season, right? Our walkout was going to be the start of the season. We kind of obfuscated that, but of course we were going to walk out day one. That was when it was going to start. So right now players are, by all accounts, continuing to scrim and practice and train. So they're getting paychecks. Don't set up a bargain. Don't set up a fund for them today. Yeah. For unions, I would love to talk to IEW, Teamsters, anybody. We do have relationships, particularly through our friends and partners at One Team Partners with traditional sports unions. And those groups have been really helpful to us throughout this entire process, not just these weeks, but in the months and years behind, and helping to advise us on how to build our player power and how to kind of awaken the labor minds of our players. Obviously, it's been a big step for us and a scary one, but they've continued to support. And shout out especially to some folks who have spent time at the NFL PA, MLB PA, and MLS PA, and NWSL PA, and WNBA PA. All those groups have had people who have helped us along this way, and we're leaning on them right now to continue to give us aid. We're talking about all of our options up to unionization, but it is very complicated because we're in a three-party system, and it's not typical in labor for three parties to exist. Usually it's employer-employee, and we got employer-employee and developer. So it makes it more complicated in some really real and really scary ways. So right now, keep the volume up.
Okay. What are so this seems to be the main point of contention, but are there other issues that players are facing that the LCSPA has spoken out about beyond so like from what I understand, and again, My understanding is not great on this stuff, so it seems like one of the major issues is that the franchise teams did not want to continue having like a farm team, right? Like through this league.
Yep.
I don't know what the proper way to call it is. I guess
I think it's a good. Yeah, I use the AAA and MLB's description all the time. I think it's pretty effective.
So and they basically did not tell you that they were going to stop implementing this. So I feel like part of it is also the franchise teams that are complaining about profits to Riot, which is then taking this action. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's always more devil in the details. We don't begrudge the teams for I understand how corporations work. You don't want something that's not pretty on the ROI, and farm systems look like loss leaders, but it's table stakes for being in the game. When they got franchised, it was partly you said you're going to get money from the developer to run your team, and you're going to get money from the developer to run your AAA team. So that was table stakes. And for the developer to just say overnight, well, I guess because you didn't spend our money well, now you don't have to operate one of those like core components of a healthy sports ecosystem, is just deeply problematic. And we've been talking with Riot. The idea of removing this requirement was not off the table, but we were talking about it for 2024. And the reality is pulling this rug from us in the middle of 2023 has caused real harm to players, meaningful harm. We lost at least 35 player jobs, probably more, plus coaches and supporting staff who all lost jobs as well. A lot of these players were here on visas and were in year-plus leases on their own that the teams made them sign. They had to break their leases, fly home to a region where they had lost residency from because many players from the Oceanic region had declared North American residency through a recent Riot decision. So they no longer have residency in their home country. So these people got sent home with a bill they couldn't afford and couldn't even play competitively. We had to spend half of our time fighting the decision itself and half the time helping them clean up the mess they made along the way. So that's the kind of situation we're looking at here and why we have taken the stand we have, because it's been egregious harm to players. And that's, it's the how it's done as much as that it is done. We were down to have a conversation long-term about how do we get away from this requirement? What does an ecosystem look like where you don't need to require teams to participate in order for people to want to participate? Again, that gets back to our asks. You put money on the table, like revenue on the table to incentivize teams to participate, or you give them a pathway to the upper division. Those are the two proven methods. That's why they were on our list of 5 items. But we're down to talk. If Riot's got an idea that works that's different, we're down. We just don't believe what's been listed so far meets that criteria. And so that's why we want to talk. We want to meet and work out a real plan, because I know there are people at Riot who care. They give a shit, and somebody's sort of forced the hand here in a way that we just don't quite understand. And we're hopeful the next 15 days are going to lead us to some meaningful discussions and actually get some outcomes.
So I have another question about the team's involvement in this, like the esports organizations. Is it not true that they applied pressure to Riot to eliminate this, and then Riot responded? Not to take away any of the responsibility off the hands of Riot, but is that not another avenue for negotiations to bring the esports teams to the table as well?
They'll absolutely be a part of it. At the end of the day, Riot's the one who makes the call on this stuff, and they're the judge, jury, executioner. Teams, we have no love for the fact that they received more money in revenue from Riot this year than they spend on player compensation. So the idea out of the gate that they think they cannot afford to operate their teams is comical. Like they're operating with C-suites and finance people. They should be able to run a budget. It's just that simple, and they should be accountable for that. And they shouldn't be given bailouts in this way for not being responsible. So they're absolutely accountable, and they're a part of the conversation. But we look again to Riot, because Riot had the choice. The teams voting means nothing. They're in advisory capacity in the same way we are. Riot had 100% autonomy to make this decision. So, we look and understand that they're the power source, and so we're not going to put more energy than we must into a group that doesn't have real power in this situation.
So for the Players Association, what's the makeup of the Players Association? If you don't mind me asking, like, is Is it on the leadership side? I assume it's like democratically elected, yourself included. But are there like who is in the makeup of the board?
Yeah, so I'm not elected. I'm hired by the executive committee of players. So we have an executive committee of 5 players who are democratically elected by their peers, and we have a board of directors of 5 community members who have professional experience and background that help to advise and support the players pro bono. Really appreciate all of them. So those the executive committee is who hires me, and the board was established by them initially, and then the board has self-selection privileges for replacement. So that is the general structure, but the power is held in the executive committee. I'm a conduit for the things they decide. I can run by
Okay.
their names, but I'm not sure as a low-level Valorant player if that's helpful for you.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So the way I see it is, it's like it's a marketing arm of Riot, like the LCS is, and for that marketing to generate value, you need players, and those players are making demands, and you are addressing, you are bringing those demands to the bringing those demands to Riot.
Yeah, absolutely. They're today they're the people. In our eyes, they said where you compete, when you compete, who can compete, and they're the ones providing the funds that pay the people who compete. So when we look and go down the list of the most important stakeholder items for our players and the things that matter to them, Riot's in charge of all of them. And so that's where our focus tends to be on them. We deal with teams frequently, and they are an important player, and we have a support from a lot of people within teams. General managers, coaches, staff, all people who care deeply about league as an esport and want the scene to work and don't agree with the decisions of their owners. Not dissimilar from the NFL, or I'm sure the NBA, where you've got plenty of people below the C-suite level that are that are compassionate and believe in the product in the right way. So, we've got those folks, and we're working with them as collaborators as well, and we seek the support of teams wherever we can, and appreciate orgs that have reached out and asked how they can be helpful and said, I don't want to hire scabs, and what do you recommend we do? So those folks have all been great, and we're going to keep working with them. But Riot is the power player, and teams know this too. We all know it. In esports, it's no secret, as Slasher pointed out. This is all like the developers are God. It's a space that is not oft considered because it's such a strange thing.
It's especially shitty when the devs themselves do not have a union internally within Riot, which is another way to most likely get Riot to meet your demands if there was a union for the devs, and then they could collaborate with the Players Association. Then Riot would be forced to basically concede, or even come to the table with less bargaining power, I guess, because they currently hold all the cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do hold the cards. Let's be real about the post they made. They said, we'll kill the league for the season if you don't come and play at some point. And this is a marketing arm for them, right? If it were the NFL, of course the NFL locks out and seasons don't happen. And in my youth, hockey was played less frequently than it was played from lockouts and strikes. These things happen for sure, but Riot has different incentives than a traditional sports league in a lockout situation, because at the end of the day, running the sport is not their core product. The game is their core product, and they have different incentives, and that changes the calculus for how you organize and how you advocate. And it's uncharted territory. It's something that excited me about taking the job, and it also keeps me up at night because there isn't a good labor book on how to deal with somebody who's got this much power.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you, and I hope that Riot listens to the very reasonable demands that you guys are making. I mean, is there anything that you want to say to at least this audience, or a broader audience in general, as far as like what watchers, viewers, league enjoyers can do?
Stay tuned. We're going to keep communicating. Our focus the next few days is going to be good faith negotiation, getting into the nitty gritty and coming out the other end with something. But we need that pressure from everybody on the way through. This delay is a space that needs to be filled with people calling for the league to see reason, and that's going to be instrumental. So anybody who can speak out and speak up, and if you have connections to folks in labor, I send them our way. We are checking our DMs as fast as we can. It has been a busy time, but we are committed to getting in there and taking every ounce of help we can get. So that was what I asked. Thank you. And just thanks for covering this and having me on. Appreciate it deeply.
Okay. All right. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you.
All right, Rod, are you there?
Yep.
All right. Do you have any final words on this?
Yeah, you used the worst fucking picture of me. I had the stream paused and I only unpaused it when Philip came on. I look like fucking Doc from Back to the Future. And you got a big Fox News logo behind me. What did you do to me?
I don't know. Why did you?
Me.
Well, that's what happens when you don't turn on your camera. Okay. You're like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't have a camera with me.
Awful. Terrible, terrible. Great. Thank you, Hassan. No, but great job. Thank you for covering it. I think you covering this story does a lot for the wider audience to understand what is happening out there, and people that don't follow League of Legends should support the players in the situation. Truly, look, esports is going through a very tough financial time for everybody, and there is some reason to understand the scenario from the organization's point of view and from Riot's point of view. However, all things considered, the players are the ones that have the least amount of leverage here. They're the ones being fucked over the most, and they deserve the most support from the community. So, good job, Hassan.
All right. Thanks for coming on, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
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 Love you.